Stepping back a second, how did you, obviously you have these GoPros, you have these handy cams, you have a bunch of mishmash of footage. How did you organize the footage? How did you, kind of go through it? How did you deal with it? You touched on it briefly, but kind of want to talk about that post-process a little bit.
Yeah, so every time they got to land, I was given the slightly damp hard drives that had been in this like Pelican case. We had the lacy hard drives that are kind of water resistant, but certainly not waterproof. But so I would take the hard drives and I would look through the footage immediately and then copy it like 3 times. And that was really part of the directing process for me, was to watch every frame. So even if I had had the budget to hire an assistant editor, which I didn't, I wouldn't have passed on that task, truly, because to watch the footage was to understand what their journey was about and what they went through. And so I'm here to tell you, I watched every frame of like 500 hours of footage. It's not like it was Big Brother style where they were filming 24 hours a day. We just didn't have the bandwidth for that. So they were very intentional with what they were filming, but it was still 9 months of that. But luckily, like, for example, when I got to Hawaii, I'm getting all the footage from San Francisco to Hawaii. So it's not like I got all the footage once they got to Australia. I could kind of in between. Then when they're on their way from Hawaii to Samoa, that's when I'm watching through the footage from the first leg and preparing to go to the next destination, fundraising, all of that.
Now, did they give you like verbal cues, like this is day 25, this is day 26, like chronologically, how did you know like what went together? And then the other thing I know, GoPro footage is usually usually the cameras die or don't last very long, and
it just goes for like 30 minutes.
Yeah. Or it's like it's like one still photo of someone's face.
There's a lot of that. Certainly.
And it did seem like, I just want to mention, I think it was Natalia. Did Natalia kind of take control of that situation on the boat? I wanted to kind of ask you about her experience, and it seemed like she really took ownership of directing cameras and doing that sort of thing on the boat.
Yeah, Natalia was certainly my liaison on the boat. She had a photography background in some sense. She's a great photographer. And so she really took ownership of making sure all the equipment would be charged, of downloading the footage. That was really part of her, daily task on the boat. But at the same time, the cameras were like lowest on the priority list of what to charge. So if they had limited solar power panel, like cameras were going to be kicked off the list. So she did a great job of like reminding everybody to interview themselves. She got great shots. So she and I were always, as much as we could be, in communication. And I'm so grateful to have had her on the boat because she was really kind of running it. And then, with the footage, I had a Google Doc essentially for each leg, each week of each leg. And I literally logged all of the footage. So if it was like an interview about something that I knew wouldn't really relate, I wouldn't transcribe it. But otherwise, I was, back to my Dancing with the Stars story assistant days. I'm like logging all the footage using keywords that I learned on Dancing with the Stars, which really helped me, of like frustrated in all caps or like good shot, having these sort of codes for me to use so that when I was working with my editor, he would be like, ooh, we need just like a good sunset shot here. And I would be able to type in like sunset and find a whole list of them. So I kind of came up with my own logging system. And then in Adobe Premiere, we had different sequences to organize the footage as well. So we'd have like a whole sequence of sunset shots, a whole sequence of wildlife, a whole sequence of dancing, whatever. We really just tried to categorize it as much as we could per leg, so that we could, once we had the story structure down, we could really kind of layer in the B-roll. And this was the kind of film where you are just tripping over the greatest B-roll of all time. And it was so much fun to edit this film because it was like, oh, did you need a shot of a whale? I have 3. Like, it was like, oh, did you want a pretty sunset? I got 10. Like, it was just like so fun to put together.
The cinematography,
so colorful, beautiful. Yeah.
For them to shoot it themselves and to capture the beauty that they did was, very impressive.
Yeah. So, and then the GoPros, I actually would draw pictures of the boat when I was in my office and dry. I would draw pictures of the boat and be like, okay, we've had the camera here and here. We need to mix it up. We need to do something different. And so I would write them an email and be like, hey, why don't you put the GoPro on the end of your oar and then row for 10 minutes with it on the end of the oar? Or like, why don't you open up the hatch and put the camera in and then close the hatch and then open it and take out your food? Just like, it was kind of film school 101, like giving them ideas of different angles, because otherwise they would just like put it at the front, press record, and it would be the same boring rowing shots for like an hour of just them in different swimsuits. It was like, okay, well, that's not going to cut it. We need like dynamic footage. And so with the drone shots, that's another part. They did not have a drone on the boat. This was our only movie magic part, was that all of the drone footage was shot within 12 hours of shore. So whether they were leaving or they were coming back, that's when we got all of the drone footage. And then we peppered it throughout the film because there was just no way to give them a drone. It would have crashed immediately. And then we just wouldn't have had any drone footage at all. So we always, either I was on a boat with the drone operator or the drone operator was on land filming out because the drone can go about a mile. And so we'd kind of film them as they were coming into land.